is how do you find that balance between performance and brand building? So there's a lot of very, very famous brands who've stood up on stages and said, we got it wrong and we went too performance heavy too early and we forgot to build our brand at the same time. You still have to build the desire for your brand. It's not just enough to put it on Tesco and hope for the best. Even with iconic brands, you still need to remind people why they love you and why they should be seeking you out in a retailer. But that being said, I'm very excited about the partnerships that we're forming with those spaces. And I think it is a unique area of expertise within media as well. So that's why you're seeing specific teams and even specific agencies build up around it. And there isn't a perfect model. You know, is it your traditional media agency that should be doing your retail media? Is it a boutique agency? Is it a specialist? A lot of people are still buying it in-house because it's linked to their key account manager teams and things like that. Where does the budget sit for retail media?
Well, exactly. That was my question. So, for instance, in CTV, which we'll get to in a minute, one can imagine where the money may be coming from, perhaps naively, but it's a fair assumption, a fair hypothesis. But in retail media, there's a lot of uncertainty, probably because there's no established pattern. Where does this money come from? Is it the good old offline trade stuff? Does it come from traditional display? Does it come from platforms? Is it new money?
Well, I think it's interesting because they're new types of partnerships, because they're both your vendor and they're your media partner, which you don't normally really have. So hence why, you might think you understand where your retail media budget sits, but then you might find that the sales team is actually contributing to some digital out of home or digital in store as well, that you weren't sitting in traditional media budgets. So I think there's the need to organize internally, but then there's also the need at the retailer side to how do they organize themselves better to partner for success as well. I think they're getting much better as partners in terms of data sharing, but I think there's still work that we can do in terms of really understanding what does the perfect digital shelf look like, really best-in-class content for retail media platforms. So it's a very exciting space in that perspective.
Quick final comment, CTV. Yeah.
No, I'll back it up to traditional media, which I know is not necessarily for everyone in this room, but I'm very excited about how the traditional retail media outlets are reinventing themselves to become more digital, whether that's CTV, or how out of home is kind of starting to stack up in the digital space and really get smart in that area. I think CTV, I'm still very much a believer that TV works. So I believe that CTV works as well. I know that's not necessarily a popular comment in this room, sorry. But I think it's very interesting when you start looking at TVs as more than just it's linear or it's CTV or it's on a phone, and you start just thinking them, and it actually goes back to something that I used to talk about with P&G, which is over 15 years ago, it's terribly old, about just screen-based planning. Whether it's video, whether it's static, whatever it is, you think how much people consume through their TV screen nowadays. I was talking to Spotify yesterday about how much I watch Spotify on my TV. And I love the fact that they have the videos, and it's a bit like having old school MTV on my TV. If I play a 90s playlist, it's amazing. But I get the ads.
We shouldn't speak about MTV. We're showing our age.
I'm not afraid to be old. It's fine.
Yeah,
it means
you were in kindergarten, but I was an adolescent.
But I think, the TV along with your phone is just another thing that people come to first. So if you start thinking about it screen first, instead of is it programmatic, is it CTV, and you start thinking about things like the first thing people do when they turn on their TV is they look at their home screen before they go into a streaming service, before they, decide what they're going to watch. There's a whole screen there, and there's ads that can be placed there. You can reach them outside of necessarily specific partners. I love the idea of being able to do things holistically across different platforms, and how different screens to interact. So I think CTV has a great future. I think in general, I just think screens and the concept of putting the right content in front of the right person at a time that matters is just going to get stronger over time.
Ali, it has been a pleasure to have you with us, truly a privilege. Thank you for the clear viewpoints, the clear theses, which are, most valuable insights for us in the industry to be able to listen to, consider, and move forward. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you very much. I thought that was really interesting. Really good real-world examples of AI, the application of connected TV. I love that screen-based planning approach. Audio as well, so thank you. It was really insightful. You've set us up for a lot of the content for the rest of today. Constantine, can I ask you to introduce our next speaker?
Yes, and it is a privilege indeed. As I was saying earlier, we appreciate always at Interact to have different viewpoints from different stakeholders of our industry, and just like it was great to have Ali with us this morning to present the brand perspective, we are truly honored to have with us the CEO of Group Rossel, one of the biggest media groups in Belgium, to provide us with a publisher perspective, Bernard Marchant. Bernard, bienvenue, and thank you very much.
Something to click, just show me. So, how does it work?
It's a little bit tight.
Thank you.
You need to press firmly.
Thanks a lot. Good morning. Does that work? Yes. Good morning to everybody. Therefore, I'm quite happy to be here today with you, just to share some, not share some data, but some strategic and operational reflection we have as a media company, and basically sharing a bit, therefore taking a bit also at the beginning of high-level view on how we interact with human brain. We talk a lot about artificial intelligence, but we like to share how we interact between artificial intelligence and human intelligence, which is, of course, I believe, one of the important responsibilities of the communication industry. Therefore, basically, of course, even though Rossel is also active on television and radio, I will take today more the perspective of a publisher, which is how we basically work and interact with the algorithm, but also with the work, or the day-to-day work, and the editorial responsibility and work of the journalist, and just how we interact between our newsroom and the machine, basically. Now, before to go to, therefore this will be the different topics I will be sharing with you. Just to come back on the publishing industry, who are we in today's communication world? How we interact with the advertising world? Obviously, most of you are part of this advertising industry, and basically to come back on the topic of how we interact with the consumer brain, which is, of course, one of the key aspects and mission of the communication industry. Now, before to start with this, of course, we are living in a quite interesting moment, and all of us being part of this global industry, we are part of this, which is, let's say, things are changing. Many people are talking about difficult period, but basically, I'm now entering the 60s, and I've always professionally as a citizen living different and changing world. Therefore, okay, the things are moving, they are moving fast, but basically we are today of what I'm calling the power game. Let's say on a daily basis, people are negotiating on a geopolitical basis, but also on a tech basis. Let's say, how is the power game running in our society? Then one of the questions is, when we are in a period where we ask to the Ministry of Defense how much money they should spend on weapons, basically. And the question is, we may ask ourselves, what is the most powerful weapon on earth? And basically, in people's mind, many people believe that the nuclear bomb is probably the more dangerous. My view is that the human bomb is far more dangerous than the nuclear one. And this is something we have to keep in mind being in this industry. The second topic, of course, is that what is the view? Because basically our industry and my industry specifically is part of the news, therefore we are on a daily basis, every moment of our life, professional life, working on news. And what is the view of the autocrats on the news? And I believe this is something most of you know as well. Is that just working as a quest for truth, or is this something used as a weapon? I believe most of you know the answer. But again, as citizen, as professional, we are part of it. Therefore, this is our industry, basically, because we interact with all those things, and I believe we are responsible for what's happening in the world. Now, the point is, personally, I'm really striking about, let's say, listening to people saying, we will spend hundreds of billions of dollars on AI, and then the other one in France say, no, we will spend $100 billion in AI. Therefore, that's good. Tech should improve, but at the end of the day, it will only work if we have the right balance with the money invested in tech, but also in the human brains. If we don't do the same thing at the right moment, that could be, I believe, a disaster, and the result of that could be that our society will work this way as with citizens not having the critical thinking anymore. It took centuries for society to build up critical thinking from the citizen. We have to make sure that the tech will not bring us to this kind of situation. And basically, this is what we, as a publisher, are aiming for. Publishing industry has been changing a lot. We moved to the digital platform, as a digital platform, therefore we are sharing news on digital platforms is almost 30 years. It has been changing a lot the way we interact with consumer. It has been really a strong transformation of our industry. And basically, I believe it's quite good just to remind who we are and what we do. And to do it on a clear way, because of course, changing the way we interact profoundly with our consumer, it's good for all companies, but also for the market, basically, to remind what we try to do on a daily basis. Therefore, the mission is to capture people's attention. It's not easy in those days. Therefore, this is really the big fight, to get people not only surfing the news, but reading the news. And that makes a big difference. And that's basically the way we want the people really to keep the critical thinking, to be able to be active citizens and to be informed so that they remain engaged. This is not only because we want to be, a big player on the democracy. Yes, of course, we have a mission, but also for economical purposes. If the people don't keep the critical thinking, they will not pay to buy the news anymore. Therefore, we need to make sure we keep those people engaged on the news if we want to succeed also as companies. Now, if we look to the characteristic of the publishing industry, why are we different? What do we do as a communication actor versus the other one? And that's extremely, this is not always very popular, but basically we employ journalists, and basically we try to put the newsroom in a context so that they can continue to work independently, spend time, make their research, and we have to put them in the right context with the right marketing, with the right tech, with the right tools so that they are able to perform their job properly. This is what we do. This is what is a publisher today in this world. And basically, of course, we have to make sure, because managing journalists is not an easy game, I tell you, but I believe it's not different when you are managing a clinic in the hospital or a group of lawyers, but basically we are managing journalists so that we are sure that they do what they have been trained for. When you don't feel good, you go on internet and you try to find for a solution. But if after 1 week you're still not feeling good, you go to the doctor. It's not different with journalists in the news. Those people are professional to understand what's happening in the world. And they do it, not always properly. All the doctors are not so good in the world, but our task as publishers is to make sure they do it with the right value, the right spirit and the right purposes. Those people could express opinion, but based on fact, and not the opposite. That makes a big difference in today's world, and this is what we really have to do today, just making sure that we put the journalists in the right context to make their job properly. The other thing which is important is that we create an interaction with the consumer. Why are the consuming paying for accessing our news? And obviously, it's based on the right balance between truth and trust. Basically, as you mentioned there, so the trust is the basic truth that we can build up with the consumer, so that we can have access to them, and so that they will pay for. That's extremely important. We speak a lot about subscription video on demand. Basically, this is what we do on news. The news cannot be free. If we want to have independent news, critical news, we have to pay for. Otherwise, it will not be the case anymore. Therefore, those people have a strong relationship with we have strong relationship with our consumer, but also, which is something that makes us different from the other, we are legally responsible for what we published. This is something most of the population even does not make the difference when they are on a social network, on a publisher side, on a news brand. I'm personally responsible for what the journalists are doing in my company. I can go in jail if they are making the thing wrongly. And that makes us different, obviously. Now, we need to engage. We are talking a lot of data, but for us, data is just a commodity. It's a key commodity of you. This is the energy, but this is the energy that helps us to put the news on the right context. Therefore, basically, this is really what we have to do. Data is everywhere, but if we don't contextualize the data, it's just noise. Therefore, our task is to put all those things and all the data on the right concept. Therefore, we have been, and we are still investing huge amount of money to access the right data properly. But of course, if we don't have the human and the journalist critical aspect to put this data on the right concept, that will just be failing as a publisher. Now, what we also like, let's say in the 60s, we were the mainstream in the media and the communication industry. We are not the mainstream anymore. We know that, but we like it. We like the diversity. We like to be different. We like to work on multi-community-based consumer. We are not targeting one person. We are really targeting community of people based on our editorial charter. If you have in a country only one publisher, that will be extremely different. Pluralism is very important. Therefore, we need diversity also in number of publishers you have on the market. That's extremely important. Therefore, everything we do, we put for each of our titles, each of our news brands, some editorial charter. And based on this, we build up the multi-community approach. Basically, we like to challenge the mainstream, and we do believe profoundly that the richness goes through diversity. And if we are diversified, if we challenge the mainstream, then we will be successful. The other thing is how we interact with the social media. Always using, social media are conversation. We are talking on social media. They are conversation, but we are there to influence this conversation. So this is the way we interact with social media. And I believe, of course, you may say as an industry, yes, but they spend more time on the social media than on news brand media. But at the end of the day, all those media are talking about the story we put on your news brand. And that's extremely important. Therefore, we still have a lot of impact on the society, and this is the way we work, impact society, and just to make sure that the society is keeping the critical thinking about what's happening in the world. The last point where we are quite different from the other is the dual revenue model. If we want to give access to our news to a large number of people, we need also advertising. And that's a big question. That will be the next topic of my presentation. Let's say when Rossel was built up by Emile Rossel 130 years ago, there were no real independent media. They were just belonging to political party, to the church, etc. He said, I will make a media that will be financed by the advertising, that will be access to a large number of people. And today, a newspaper, a news brand, has to live with about at least 30% to 50% of advertising revenue, so that we can put the journalists in the right concept to work. There are many questions today in our industry saying, do we still need, are we count on the advertising for the future? No, I have some experiences because they put me the same question 25 years ago. Then everything said at that time, all the consultants saying, forget about subscription, everything will be financed by advertising. Hopefully, we didn't believe to this, we kept our dual model. And then after the banking crisis, they said, no, subscription is the model. And then everything went subscription. No, we strongly believe within Rossel that if we want to be a real popular news brand, we need both revenue model. But the first one is, of course, the B2C. If we are not successful B2C, it's useless to try to sell advertising. And that's why we are, and we do believe in this strong model within Rossel, and I believe as an industry. Now, when talking about our interaction with the ad industry, this is a slide I believe I developed 15 years ago, something like this. Almost 30 years that we are transforming ourselves into the digital industry. It's changing a lot the way we work. Therefore, the skills we have in our companies today have nothing to do with the one we had 40 years ago. We are totally different. What did we learn? We learned basically because when we were providing news on a newspaper was quite easy. 30 years now that we are interacting on digital platform, what did we build up as skill? But basically those one. We have to put the right news to the right consumer on the right device on the right moment. And this is the base and the center of our offer. Therefore, the DNA of a company today, after 30 years, is this. This is what we do in our newsroom. This is what our marketing people are doing, and this is what are the skills of our sales house. And obviously, being different, this is what we can offer to the advertising market. Let's say, basically, if our skills, if our DNA is to do this, we can do it on news, but we also, if we are different from other one, we can do this also for the advertising market, because this is the way the skills have been built up in our industry. Now, if I'm talking about our experience, is that automatization means standardization. We don't like this. We believe that machine to machine should help for creativity, diversity, and just allowing us to reach and to get the right target at the right moment and the right device. And this is not what we experience today, to be honest. We talk a lot about format, device, platform, but not about the content, the context in which those formats have been delivered to the consumer. And basically, I believe that all the tools, especially AI, that will be helping a lot to do those things, have to make sure that in the advertising industry, we can get consumer engagement through the creativity, because at the end of the day, communication industry is a creative industry, and that the tech should be there to help us to be far more creative, different, because I believe this is the more efficient way to interact with the people's brain. Now, when I'm in contact with advertising industry, and this is, we know, not me, but also my people, they look to us saying, you are a print guy. Yeah, this is bloody hell, 30 years that we went out of it. But this is still, we are categorized as a print industry. Everybody loves print, it's nice, but they don't spend money on print anymore, which is a bit stupid in my view, because this is true that print is not the mainstream anymore, but it can be a very good selective media to communicate between us. And at the end of the day, it's quite, let's say, you get people attention on the moment and outside of their screen. Therefore, of course, this is not mainstream anymore, this is not growing anymore. We know that very well, this is not new. But then they look to me and then they put us in the open web. This is our category. Let's say, this is where they put the publisher, open web. Therefore, they put the advertising on the same way on the Météo of Météo France than on the platform, on the Newsbrand of Le Soir, which is stupid. They use the same way of the same interaction between Le Soir and Sud Info. They are different news brands. So please use those differences. This is what needs to be done with the tech. Today it's possible. It was difficult some years ago. Today it's feasible. And the value of l'Echo, Le Soir, Sud Info, Le Monde, Le Figaro are not the same. Use those characteristics and difference between those publishers. Therefore, this is for me a missed opportunity. We are also partly responsible for that, without any doubt. Therefore, we need to exist in this digital world more than we do today. Why did we fail, basically? Basically because we don't have basically the ad service platform. The acquisition of DoubleClick by Google has been something for us quite terrible. Because at the end of the day, they put us on the right tools ad serving than everybody. Now, of course, this may change. The ad serving platform can take into account our characteristic or context, but this is not the case today. Those that have been successful, and we saw it in the figures that was presented before, they do it a bit better on the north of Europe. DPG is doing it properly in the Netherlands. We don't do it yet properly within Rossel, but we are building up the things in France with 366, and we do it also in Belgium so that we make sure, because this is our responsibility to make sure that we provide you with the right ad serving platform. We have the assets, and I believe we have the difference. We are flexible, agile, and local, and those values are important. Now, just to come back on the reflection, this is how are we interacting with people intelligence, I would say. And I believe you all know those things. That's how this is, this is not scientific, but we know how the works or the brain, human brain is working. And obviously, all those things are known, let's say, how you get people attention and at which moment of their attention. Of course, we know that while reading, they are concentrated and they get more access to information. Therefore, they're integrating the information in a better way than viewing, listening, obviously, of sleeping. That's something we, as a news brand, we are working on daily basis to make sure that they get the news, that they are not just surfing the news, but they're also reading the news, basically using all the different tools that are available. Now, basically, when having all the tech, let's say AI is just a tool, and I believe the brain, human brain, is a nexus. Therefore, this is how the communication industry, all of us here, are interacting with human brain. And that's basically the target, and that's what our company are doing on a daily basis, try to engage consumer, having the right tools and outstanding, being creative, and I believe this is the aim of the communication industry. Now, what is our final target? This is just working together because of our DNA, because we are trying on a daily basis to build up our brand. There is no news, there is no publisher industry without a strong news brand. And these things we can share with you in the advertising degree so that we build up value, because at the base of a brand, there are the values. If you don't have any values, you forget about your brand. Of course, those things have to be operational. I make always a difference between communication and operational marketing that has to be linked together. But if we start now operational marketing, you start to interact, to build up the conversation with your brand, of course, to make some promotional action. All those things we are able to do because we do it also for ourselves. At the end of the day, this is obviously the target of all of us here in the room, having the consumer while sleeping, dreaming of our brands. This is, I believe, our common target. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Do we have questions for Bernard from the floor? Had some here earlier, so do we have some questions from this side maybe? Okay, I can see two questions. Only this side of the room is curious. This side of the room is in theta waves.
The brain has been organized.
Okay, can we get a mic? Okay, great.
This side of the room is far superior, just so you know. Thank you for your presentation. I thought it was excellent, very interesting. One of the things I wanted to ask you, you said about advertising following credibility, and I just wondered, just to unpick that a bit, one of the things, so I work at IB in the UK, and we, part of our role is to help the industry and to help publishers, and it's hard at the moment, and I wonder how much you believe that advertising follows credibility versus advertising following eyeballs and ability to measure and other things. Because I don't know, I wonder how well that message resonates now.
Just to understand, this is how we measure efficiency of the...
No, so you said in your presentation
yes.
that advertising follows credibility, because journalism is really important. What's quite difficult, I think, is persuading marketers to invest in news and in publishers. And I wonder if you think that message really cuts through, or do you think actually advertisers are more worried about the number of eyeballs, how well they can track their campaigns, and do they really care about credibility?
Well, there is something which is a bit striking me in the way on my day-to-day life. You know about the blacklist? You know what it is?
Yeah.
Therefore, I remember 30 years ago, the advertisers were always asking for the page 3 of the newspaper. And, these were the hot topics in the news. But they all want to be on the page 3, basically. And today, they build up the blacklist. Hopefully, these blacklists are not public, because I believe that will be a drama for some advertiser. But then the people today, because the news are not positive, they say, no, I don't want to be in the news anymore. And obviously, we are building up the news, etc. But I believe the advertising market is underestimate the critical sense of the citizen, not only the advertiser, the politician as well. But therefore, I believe the citizen, and at least those paying for buying a newspaper or news brand, they have critical thinking. They understand when an advertising is there, if an advertising has something to tell, something to say, this is the best place to be, because people get informed on the things. But this is not the way the industry is working today. They all want, this is why all the publisher, there are some Belgium here, if you take L'Echo and the Tate, we have a fantastic lifestyle magazine on the Saturday, just because we put the advertising in the right concept. They love this. But, I'm personally not, in my experience, do believe that the efficiency of the advertising will be better there. They feel better, but I'm not sure it's more efficient. Of course, we need to measure that. But at the end of the day, the best advertising, for me, are bringing the best content. Therefore, I believe advertising has to build in the right content. And now after they have to deliver from time to time on the social media, sometimes on television, on the publisher, they have to be diversified on this. But what makes the difference on advertising is having the right message and the right context. And the message should not be the same in the different media or support. Therefore, it will be totally stupid to have exactly the same content in the different devices. This is what I explain here. To put the right message on the right context, and the technology make it possible today. It was difficult many years ago. Today, AI is making those things possible. So we should invest a lot on this. But the news, I believe we should keep in mind that the news is the right moment also to inform the people, to get their attention. So yes, we should do this. And we can measure that, basically, because we do it for ourselves as well. I don't know if you had a...
Excellent. Constantine, can you be very quick?
Yes. Right on the spot.
Yeah, quick yet provocative. We read an article a few weeks back about a major platform that essentially said that, listen, in the future, in the near future, we're just going to speak with an advertiser who's going to give us a general idea of what he wants, and all the rest, up to execution and distribution, it'll be us. So bypassing essentially the entire value chain. And no eyelid was battled, nothing. You know, the article passed like that, as if it's a normalité, it's something normal. And I was thinking, there are publishers in some countries, and Group Rossel is a giant of the Belgian media and marketing ecosystem, and not only, but also in the Scandinavian countries, that are large enough to engage in direct conversations with brands about their communications goals. They are able, therefore, to establish a strategic dialogue and make the argument about credibility and trust and the value of context, etc. Is this something that premium publishers should be doing more of? Because historically they've been afraid not to rock the relationships with agencies and other partners. What should happen?
Let's say the communication industry advertising everything except standardization. Therefore, I believe we should fight against standardization, automatization, etc. Because, let's say, we are talking about CPM, CPC, things like that. Just understand, these are currency to make the thing easier. But what is the value of a CPC or a CPM, etc.? Let's say, when you are using a bazooka just to target someone. You know, I'm living in Belgium, which is multicultural, as you know. I'm living in the Flemish part, but I'm a native French-speaking boy. I'm still getting advertising on daily basis in Flemish, which for me is not a problem. I speak Flemish as well. But, you know, it's just a proof that today, those data, those things, etc., this is not working properly. We can do far, far, far better. Let's say now digital world is 30 years old. Therefore, we have AI. Let's say, I believe we should do that far better than the things. And again, this is the purpose of my presentation. We are different. We can bring different value towards the communication industry. Therefore, let's use it properly. And I believe to do this, of course, and this is our fault, we need our own ads platform. If we don't have it, but then, of course, the media agency should allow us to do it. It's not easy. DPG succeeded in Netherlands. Some succeeded in Norway because of language difference, etc. We are fighting to get it in Belgium, together with DPG, by the way. But agency doesn't like it. They want an easy way of doing things. And you know, we have already TikTok, Meta, Google, therefore why should we have another platform? What for? We prefer to go to something simple. I don't believe that communication efficiency has to do with simplicity. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, excellent discussion there. We've heard from some great speakers this morning, and now it's time for a coffee break. So please get yourself a cup of coffee and a biscuit, and we'll be back in this room at 11:30. I look forward to seeing you at 11:30 in this room. Just a quick coffee break.